You ever look back at a money decision you made and just scratch your head, thinking, what on earth was I thinking? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. We all like to think we're these super rational people, especially when it comes to our finances. But the truth is, our brains are kind of hardwired with these emotional tripwires and mental shortcuts that can make us do some pretty baffling things with our money. So today, we're going to dive deep into exactly why that happens, using the fascinating field of behavioral finance.
So here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by totally shattering the myth of the perfectly rational investor. Then we'll get into 5 of the most common mental traps that catch us. We'll explore the raw emotions that really drive the market, and then, the important part, we'll give you some real strategies to fight back against the online noise and build your own discipline. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with a key takeaway you can use right away.
All right, let's kick things off by challenging a huge idea, one that traditional economics was built on. This assumption that all of us are these perfectly logical, calculating machines when it comes to money.
I mean, this is the million-dollar question, right? For a long time, standard financial theories couldn't really explain wild market bubbles or sudden crashes. It just didn't compute. It took a whole new field, one that smashes psychology and economics together, to even begin to find the real answers.
Okay, this slide really lays out the 2 competing ideas. On one side, you've got the classic theory, the efficient market hypothesis, or EMH. It imagines investors as these perfectly rational robots who only make decisions based on cold, hard facts. It's a nice, clean theory. But then there's behavioral finance, and it looks at us as, normal people. People who get swept up by emotions, who use mental shortcuts to get by, and who, guess what, make mistakes. And it argues that the market isn't always efficient precisely because it's made up of us messy humans. So, if we're not always rational, what's really going on up there? Well, let's break down the specific psychological traps, or biases, that trip us up again and again.
First up, the big one, overconfidence. This is that little voice in your head that says, oh yeah, I can beat the market, no problem. And get this, research shows that a whopping 64% of investors think they have a high level of investment know-how. This inflated ego can lead us to trade way too much or take on some seriously risky bets, because it fools us into thinking we're somehow immune to all the other traps we're about to talk about.
Next, we have herd mentality, and it's usually fueled by its evil twin, FOMO, the fear of missing out. This is when we see everyone else jumping on a hot stock and we pile in too, basically assuming the crowd knows something we don't. And check this out. Studies suggest it only takes about 5% of informed investors to get the other 95% to follow along. Remember the whole meme stock craze? Yeah, that was herd mentality on steroids, amplified by social media.
Then there's loss aversion. On a psychological level, the pain of losing $100 just stings, way more than the joy of gaining $100 feels good. And this bias is a real double-edged sword. It can cause us to panic and sell everything when the market dips, locking in our losses, or it can make us cling to a losing investment for way too long, just hoping it'll bounce back, because our pride can't handle the pain of admitting we messed up.
So, anchoring bias. This is when we get mentally stuck on the first piece of information we get. For investors, this is almost always the price we paid for a stock. We anchor to that number, and it totally clouds our judgment going forward. We might refuse to sell for less than that price, even if the company's fundamentals have completely changed and it's clear the stock just isn't worth that anymore.
And last but not least, confirmation bias. This is our brain's natural desire to live in an echo chamber. If we think a stock is a total winner, we'll go out and find all the news articles, all the social media posts that agree with us, while completely ignoring all the warning signs. This bias is what pours gasoline on the fire of herd mentality. You find an online forum that loves the same stock you do, and suddenly everyone is just patting each other on the back, creating this powerful feedback loop that feels amazing but can blind you to massive risks. Okay, so we've identified these 5 biases, but what's the fuel that makes them burn so bright? Let's talk about the emotional engine of the market, that timeless tug-of-war between fear and greed.
The emotional gap. It's the space between what we should do based on logic and what we actually do when we're in the grip of a powerful feeling. Some say fear and greed are the only 2 emotions that really move the market, and learning to manage this gap is maybe the single most important key to long-term success.
And this slide just perfectly shows the 2 extremes of that gap. On the fear side, just think back to March 2020. The pandemic was exploding. Nobody knew what was going to happen, and that collective fear triggered one of the fastest, sharpest market sell-offs in history.
Now flip that coin over to the greed of 2021. The meme stock craze was in full swing, driven by nothing but pure FOMO and euphoria, sending stocks like GameStop to the moon, completely detached from reality. Two sides of the same emotional coin.
So, we get the problem. We've seen the biases, we understand the emotional drivers. Now, let's get to the most important part. What can we actually do about it? This section is all about practical strategies to fight back, and we're starting with the modern-day engine of herd mentality, social media.
The first and maybe most critical step is you have to intentionally break out of your echo chamber. So, step 1. On places like X, don't just follow the cheerleaders. You need to actively find and follow the critics and the skeptics. Step 2. If you're on Reddit, don't live in just one subreddit. Branch out, visit other communities that have different points of view. It's the only way to escape groupthink. Step 3 is huge. Log off. You have to supplement your social media diet with actual research and trusted news sources. And finally, step 4, become your own biggest critic. Before you pull the trigger on an investment, you have to force yourself to find and seriously consider the arguments against it.
All right, so now that we have a plan to manage all the noise from the outside world, it's time to build up our internal defenses. This next part is all about forging your own mental armor.
You know, building discipline really starts with self-awareness. You have to know what your emotional triggers are, what kinds of news or posts make you feel that FOMO or get you anxious. And pay attention to your body too. A racing heart, tense shoulders, that's your body's early warning system. A really powerful tool for this is an emotional journal. Seriously, after you make a trade, don't just log the price, write down how you felt. Try rating that emotion on a scale of 1 to 10. You do this for a while, and I promise you'll start to see patterns connecting your feelings to your results.
Self-awareness is one half of the battle. Having a solid structure is the other half. And a trading plan is your absolute best defense against your own emotions. First, before you even hit the buy button, you need to define exactly when you'll sell, for both a profit and for a loss. Second, set really strict risk limits. A good rule of thumb is to never risk more than 1 or 2% of your whole account on a single idea. That prevents one bad call from blowing you up. Third, you enforce this with position sizing. That just means you figure out how much to invest based on your risk limit, not just on a gut feeling. And finally, use automated tools like stop-loss orders. Think of them as your financial safety net. They automatically sell for you if a stock hits your exit price, taking that painful, emotional decision right out of your hands.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, so let's bring it all home in this final section and turn all this knowledge into a powerful mindset you can actually use.
Benjamin Graham, who's basically the father of value investing, absolutely nailed the core idea of behavioral finance with this little story about Mr. Market. Imagine you have a business partner named Mr. Market. Every single day, he comes to your office and offers to either buy your shares or sell you his. But here's the catch. The guy's a complete emotional wreck. Some days he's euphoric, offering you ridiculously high prices. The next day, he's in a total panic, offering to sell you everything for pennies on the dollar. Graham's point was brilliant and simple. You don't have to play his game. You can use his crazy mood swings to your advantage, but you can never, ever let his emotions become your emotions.
And really, that's the ultimate takeaway here. Learning about these biases isn't just some boring academic lesson. It's about realizing that Mr. Market, he lives inside every single one of us. But by building self-awareness, by creating a disciplined plan, and by daring to think for yourself, you can insulate your portfolio from his chaos. So the only question left is, now that you know he's there, are you going to let him keep calling the shots, or are you going to take back control?